The old alarm clock next to the bed made a terrible noise every morning at 6. But today, like most days, little Maya was already awake before it started ringing. She had learned to wake up early because that's when the trailer was quietest, and she could think about her dreams from the night before. Maya was 8 years old, but she looked smaller than most kids her age. Her clothes were always a bit too big, hand-me-downs from the church donation box that her grandmother Rosa picked up every month. Her dark hair was usually tied back with whatever rubber band or old ribbon they could find. But Maya's eyes were bright and full of life, even when her stomach growled from hunger. She lived with her grandmother Rosa in a small white trailer that had seen better days. The trailer sat at the edge of Pine Ridge, South Dakota, where the wind never seemed to stop blowing. In winter, that wind cut right through the thin walls. In summer, it brought dust that got into everything, no matter how tightly they closed. The windows. Rosa was 67 years old and moved slowly these days. Her hands were rough from years of cleaning houses and doing laundry for other families. She had raised Maya's father in this same trailer, working 2 jobs to make sure he could go to school and have a better life. When Maya's parents died in that terrible car accident 2 winters ago, Rosa didn't think twice about taking in her granddaughter. Family was family, no matter how little money you had. The trailer had problems that never seemed to get fixed. The roof leaked in 3 different places, so when it rained, they had to put pots and bowls on the floor to catch the water. The sound of dripping kept them awake at night, but they had gotten used to it. The heating didn't work well, so in winter, they wore their coats inside and huddled together under every blanket they owned. The small kitchen had a refrigerator that hummed loudly and sometimes stopped working altogether. Rosa would bang on its side with her fist and usually it would start up again. The stove had only 2 burners that worked, but Rosa could make magic happen with those 2 burners. She could stretch a can of soup into dinner for 2 or make a single potato feed both of them when times were really tough. Maya's favorite spot in the trailer was the small window in what used to be her father's bedroom. She could sit on the old wooden chair and look out at the vast prairie that stretched for miles. Sometimes she would see wild horses running in the distance, and she would pretend she was running with them, free and fast with no worries about where the next meal would come from. Every morning, Maya would help Rosa get ready for whatever work she could find that day. Rosa's Social Security check came once a month, but it was never enough to pay for rent, food, and everything else they needed. So Rosa would clean houses when her arthritis wasn't too bad, or help at the local church when they needed extra hands for events. Maya learned early that every penny mattered. When they went to the store, they would count their money twice before buying anything. They would compare prices on everything, even things that cost less than $1. Maya became very good at math because she was always helping Rosa figure out if they had enough money for groceries. But despite having so little, Rosa taught Maya something very important. She would always say, "Mija, we may not have much money, but we have something more valuable than gold. We have kind hearts, and kindness doesn't cost us anything to give away." Rosa proved this every day. When Mrs. Chen next door was sick with flu, Rosa made her soup even though they barely had enough food for themselves. When the Martinez family's car broke down and they couldn't get to the grocery store, Rosa walked their children to school for a whole week until their car was fixed. When old Mr. Thompson's electricity got cut off because he couldn't pay his bill, Rosa brought him candles and invited him for dinner. Maya watched all of this and learned that helping others wasn't about having extra money or things. It was about seeing when someone needed help and doing whatever you could, no matter how small. Maya's days were filled with small jobs that helped Rosa. She would sweep the front steps, fold the laundry that Rosa brought home from her cleaning jobs, and help count the change they collected in a big jar for emergencies. Maya was also responsible for walking to the mailbox every day to check if any bills had come or if Rosa's Social Security check had arrived. The mailbox was a quarter-mile away from their trailer, but Maya didn't mind the walk. It gave her time to think and to look at the big sky that seemed to go on forever. She loved how the colors changed throughout the day, from soft pink in the morning to bright blue at noon, then orange and purple when the sun started to set. On Sundays, Maya and Rosa would walk to the small community church about a mile away. Maya liked church because everyone there treated her like she mattered. even though her clothes were old and her shoes had holes in them. The pastor, Father Miguel, always had a kind word for Maya, and sometimes the church ladies would slip her a homemade cookie or a small toy. After church, Maya and Rosa would sometimes stop at the community center where local families gathered to share food and stories. Maya loved these gatherings because she got to hear about the different cultures and traditions of the people who lived in their area. There were families who had moved from Mexico, families who had been in South Dakota for generations, and Native American families from the nearby reservation. Maya was always curious about the Native American children she met at these gatherings. They would tell stories about their traditions, their connection to the land, and the importance of respecting all living things. Maya felt drawn to these ideas because they reminded her of what Rosa taught her about kindness and helping others. One thing that made Maya different from other kids her age was how she noticed things. While other children might walk past someone who looked sad or hurt, Maya always stopped to pay attention. She would notice if someone was limping, or if they looked hungry, or if they seemed lost or confused. Rosa often said that Maya had a special gift for seeing when people needed help. "You have eyes that see the heart, Mija," Rosa would tell her. "Not everyone has that gift, but you do. And with that gift comes responsibility. When you see someone who needs help, you must help them if you can." Maya took this responsibility seriously. She would help elderly people carry their groceries even though the bags were often heavier than she was. She would share her lunch with kids at school who didn't have anything to eat, even though that meant she would be hungry later. She would walk lost dogs back to their homes, even if it meant she would be late getting back to help Rosa. School was complicated for Maya. She was a good student and loved to learn, but she was often tired because she stayed up late helping Rosa with work they brought home. Sometimes she would fall asleep at her desk, and the teacher would gently wake her up. Maya was embarrassed about this, but her teacher, Mrs. Patterson, understood that Maya had more responsibilities than most 8-year-olds. Mrs. Patterson would often keep extra snacks in her desk for students who came to school hungry, and she always made sure Maya got one. She also started a small library in the classroom where students could borrow books to take home. Maya loved this because books gave her a way to escape to different worlds where anything was possible. Maya's favorite books were stories about brave children who went on adventures and helped people along the way. She would read these stories to Rosa in the evenings, and they would both imagine what it would be like to travel to faraway places and have exciting experiences. But Maya didn't need to read books to find adventure. She found excitement in simple things like discovering a bird's nest with baby birds in it, or finding interesting rocks during her walks to the mailbox. She found joy in helping Rosa braid her hair, or in successfully fixing the loose handle on their front door with some old wire. Maya also found adventure in meeting new people in their community. Pine Ridge was small, but it was home to people from many different backgrounds. Maya loved learning about their different traditions, foods, and ways of life. She was especially fascinated by the stories that Native American elders would tell about their ancestors and the old ways of living close to the land. As winter started to turn into spring, Maya began spending more time outside. She would help Rosa hang laundry on the clothesline they had strung between 2 poles behind their trailer. While the clothes dried in the wind, Maya would explore the area around their home, always looking for something interesting or someone who might need help. The prairie around Pine Ridge was beautiful but harsh. In spring, wildflowers would pop up in unexpected places, bringing splashes of color to the brown grass. Maya learned to identify different flowers and would pick small bouquets to brighten up their trailer. Rosa taught her which plants were safe and which ones to avoid, and Maya became very good at spotting the difference. Maya's world was small but full of love. Even though they struggled with money and their trailer had problems, Rosa made sure Maya knew she was loved and valued. Every night before bed, Rosa would tell Maya stories about her father when he was young, and about Maya's mother, who Rosa said had the same kind heart that Maya had. These bedtime stories were Maya's favorite part of the day. Rosa would talk about how Maya's father used to. The morning started like any other Tuesday in late spring. Maya woke up before the alarm clock, helped Rosa fold the clean laundry from yesterday's washing, and ate a small bowl of oatmeal that Rosa had made stretch to feed both of them. The milk in their refrigerator had gone sour 2 days ago, So they ate the oatmeal plain. But Rosa made it taste better by telling Maya funny stories about when Maya's father was little and refused to eat his breakfast. After breakfast, Rosa counted the coins and crumpled dollar bills in their emergency jar. They had exactly $4.37. It wasn't much, but it was enough to buy a small carton of milk from the trading post about a mile away. Maya loved these walks to the trading post because it was one of the few times she and Rosa could take their time and enjoy being outside together. The trading post was owned by Mr. and Mrs. Wilson, an elderly couple who had run the small store for over 30 years. They sold basic groceries, household items, and served as a gathering place where neighbors could catch up on local news. Maya always enjoyed their visits there because the Wilsons treated everyone with respect, whether they were buying a cart full of groceries or just a single item like milk. Rosa put on her worn brown jacket and Maya grabbed her thin blue sweater. Even though it was spring, the mornings in South Dakota could still be chilly, especially when the wind was blowing. They locked their trailer door, though there wasn't much inside worth stealing, and began their walk along the gravel road that connected their home to the main road. The walk to the trading post usually took about 20 minutes. Maya and Rosa would talk about their plans for the day, point out interesting clouds in the sky, or wave to neighbors they passed along the way. Today felt peaceful and ordinary, with birds singing in the few trees that grew along the roadside, and the sun warming their faces as it climbed higher in the morning sky. They were about halfway to the trading post when Maya heard something that made her stop walking. It was a sound she had never heard before, a mix of crying and moaning that seemed to be coming from somewhere up ahead. Rosa heard it too, and they both looked around to see where the sound was coming from. About 50 yards ahead of them, just off the side of the road, Maya spotted a small figure sitting in the tall grass. At first she thought it might be a lost animal, but as they got closer she realized it was a child about her own age. The boy was sitting with his back against a large rock, and even from a distance, Maya could see that something was very wrong. "Rosa, look," Maya said, pointing toward the boy. "Someone's hurt." Rosa's eyesight wasn't as good as it used to be, but she could see enough to know that Maya was right. "Come on, mija," Rosa said, picking up her pace despite her arthritis. "Let's see what's wrong." As they approached the boy, Maya could see more clearly what had happened. The child appeared to be Native American, with long black hair and clothes that were torn and dirty. His left leg was bent at an angle that didn't look natural, and his face was streaked with tears and dust. He was holding his leg with both hands and rocking back and forth, making soft sounds of pain. Maya ran ahead of Rosa and knelt down next to the boy. Up close she could see that he was probably the same age as her, maybe a little younger. His dark eyes were filled with pain and fear, and Maya's heart immediately went out to him. "Hi," Maya said softly, not wanting to startle the boy. "My name is Maya. What's your name?" The boy looked up at Maya with frightened eyes. He said something in a language Maya didn't understand, then tried to say something in English. His English wasn't perfect, but Maya could understand most of what he was trying to tell her. "My name, Little Hawk," the boy managed to say between gasps of pain. "My horse, she got scared by snake. I fell off my leg." Rosa caught up to them and immediately knelt down on the other side of Little Hawk. Even though she was in her 60s and had her own aches and pains, Rosa's instincts as a grandmother kicked in immediately. She gently touched Little Hawk's forehead to check if he had a fever, then looked at his injured leg without touching it. "How long have you been here, sweet boy?" Rosa asked gently. Little Hawk tried to explain, using a mix of English and his native language, along with hand gestures. From what Maya and Rosa could understand, he had been herding cattle on his family's land early that morning when his horse got spooked by a rattlesnake. The horse had reared up suddenly, and Little Hawk had fallen hard onto some rocks. His horse had run off, probably heading back to his family's ranch, but Little Hawk couldn't walk because of his injured leg. Maya looked around and realized they were miles from anywhere. The nearest neighbor was at least 2 miles away, and the reservation, where Little Hawk lived, was even further. There were no cars on this road at this time of day, and Little Hawk had no way to call for help. "Rosa, we have to help him," Maya said. though she knew Rosa was already thinking the same thing. "Of course we do, Mija," Rosa replied. She looked at Little Hawk's leg again and could see that it was definitely broken, or at least badly sprained. Moving him would be painful, but leaving him here wasn't an option. Rosa explained their situation to Little Hawk as simply as she could. They lived in a trailer about half a mile back down the road. They could help him get there, and then they could figure out how to contact his family or get him medical help. Little Hawk nodded, understanding that these strangers were offering to help him even though they didn't know him. Getting Little Hawk to his feet was not easy. Rosa supported him on one side while Maya, despite being small, did her best to support him on the other side. Little Hawk was brave and tried not to cry out as they helped him stand, but Maya could see how much pain he was in. The walk back to their trailer took almost an hour. They had to stop every few minutes to let Little Hawk rest, and sometimes the pain in his leg was so bad that he had to sit down for several minutes before he could continue. Maya stayed by his side the entire time, talking to him about anything she could think of to help distract him from the pain. She told him about her life with Rosa, about the books she liked to read, and about the wild horses she sometimes saw running across the prairie. Little Hawk listened and occasionally smiled despite his pain. He told Maya a little about his own life, how he lived with his grandfather and other family members on the reservation, how he helped take care of their cattle and horses, and how he was learning the old stories and traditions of his people. Maya was fascinated by everything Little Hawk told her. She had always been curious about Native American culture, and hearing Little Hawk talk about his family's traditions made her want to learn more. But mostly she was focused on making sure he was okay and getting him safely to their trailer. When they finally reached the trailer, Rosa immediately set about making Little Hawk as comfortable as possible. She helped him onto their old couch, which was the most comfortable piece of furniture they had. She propped his injured leg up on pillows and covered him with their best blanket, the one Rosa's mother had made by hand many years ago. Maya brought Little Hawk a cup of water and sat beside him while Rosa looked through their small medicine cabinet for anything that might help with his pain. They didn't have much, some aspirin, bandages, and antiseptic cream, but Rosa did what she could to clean the scrapes on Little Hawk's leg and hands. While Rosa tended to Little Hawk's injuries, Maya realized that he was probably hungry and thirsty. She looked in their small refrigerator and pantry to see what they could offer him. They didn't have much food left. They had been planning to buy groceries after getting the milk, but Maya found a can of chicken soup and some crackers. Rosa heated up the soup while Maya sat with Little Hawk, continuing to talk with him and trying to keep his spirits up. She showed him some of her favorite books, and even though he couldn't read English very well, he enjoyed looking at the pictures. He told Maya about the stories his grandfather told him about their ancestors, warriors and wise leaders who protected their people and lived in harmony with the land. When the soup was ready, Rosa brought it to Little Hawk along with the crackers. Maya realized that this was supposed to be their dinner. They had been planning to make the soup last for 2 meals, but she didn't hesitate to give it all to Little Hawk. He was hurt and far from home, and Maya knew that Rosa would agree, that he needed it more than they did. Little Hawk ate gratefully, and Maya could see that the warm food was making him feel a little better. Rosa sat down with them and tried to figure out the best way to get word to Little Hawk's family that he was safe. The problem was that they didn't have a phone, and their nearest neighbor with a phone was Mrs. Chen, who lived about 3 miles away. "I'll walk to Mrs. Chen's house," Rosa said. "I can use her phone to call someone at the reservation." But Little Hawk shook his head. He explained that many families on the reservation didn't have phones, and he wasn't sure if anyone would know how to reach his grandfather quickly. He said that his horse would probably return to their ranch eventually, and when his family realized he was missing, they would start looking for him. But that might not happen until evening, when he was supposed to return from herding cattle. Maya woke up several times during the night, not because the floor was uncomfortable, but because she wanted to check on Little Hawk. Each time she quietly lifted her head to look toward her bed, she could see his small form under Rosa's handmade blanket. Sometimes he would move restlessly in his sleep, probably because his leg was hurting, and Maya would worry that he wasn't comfortable enough. Around 3 in the morning, Maya heard Little Hawk make a soft sound of pain. She got up quietly, trying not to wake Rosa, and tiptoed over to check on him. Little Hawk was awake, his eyes reflecting the moonlight that came through their thin curtains. "Are you okay?" Maya whispered. Little Hawk nodded, but Maya could see that he was trying to be brave. His leg was probably throbbing with pain, and he was far from home with people he had just met. Maya sat down gently on the edge of the bed. "Leg hurts," Little Hawk admitted quietly. Maya remembered that Rosa had left some of the herbal tea on the small table next to the bed. She helped Little Hawk sit up carefully and gave him the cup. The tea had grown cold, but Rosa had said the herbs would help with pain even when the tea wasn't warm. "Rosa knows a lot about healing plants," Maya whispered. She learned from Native American friends who taught her which plants help with different problems. Little Hawk sipped the cold tea and seemed surprised. "This is good medicine," he said, quietly. "My grandmother makes tea like this." Maya stayed with Little Hawk until he fell back asleep. She pulled the blanket up to his chin and made sure his injured leg was still properly supported by pillows. Then she returned to her spot on the floor, but she felt good knowing that she had been able to help him feel a little better. When morning came, Rosa was up before dawn as usual. Maya heard her moving quietly around the small kitchen, trying not to wake their guest. Maya got up and helped Rosa prepare breakfast, though their options were limited. They had used their soup for Little Hawk's dinner the night before, and their food supplies were running lower than usual. Rosa found some oatmeal in the back of their cupboard and a small can of peaches that she had been saving for a special occasion. "This is a special occasion," Rosa told Maya quietly. "When you have a guest in your home, especially one who is hurt and far from family, you give them the best you have." Maya helped Rosa prepare a tray with the oatmeal, peaches, and some toast made from their last few slices of bread. They also made fresh herbal tea using the plants Rosa had gathered. When Little Hawk woke up, Maya brought the tray to him with a big smile. "Good morning, Little Hawk," Maya said cheerfully. "How are you feeling today?" Little Hawk tried to sit up and Maya helped him get comfortable. She could see that his leg was still painful, but he seemed to be feeling a little better overall. The swelling had gone down somewhat, though it was clear that his injury was serious and needed proper medical attention. "Thank you," Little Hawk said, as Maya set the tray where he could reach it easily. "You and your grandmother, you are very kind to me." Maya watched as Little Hawk ate breakfast. She was happy to see that he had a good appetite, which Rosa always said was a sign that someone was getting better. While he ate, Maya sat beside him, and they continued the conversations they had started the day before. Little Hawk told Maya more about his life on the reservation. He described the wide-open spaces where his family's cattle grazed, the horses that ran freely across the land, and the traditional ceremonies that brought the community together. He spoke about his grandfather with great respect and love, calling him a wise leader who was respected by everyone in their tribe. "My grandfather teaches me the old ways," Little Hawk explained. "He says I must learn our history and traditions so I can pass them on to my children someday." Maya was fascinated by everything Little Hawk told her. She asked him about the stories his grandfather told, about the animals that lived on the reservation, and about what it was like to grow up learning two different cultures, his traditional Native American heritage and the modern American world. After breakfast, Rosa sat down with them to discuss what they should do next. Little Hawk's leg clearly needed medical attention, but getting him to a doctor was complicated. The nearest clinic was in town, about 15 miles away, and they didn't have a car. The reservation had its own medical clinic, but that was even further away. "I think I should walk to Mrs. Chen's house and use her phone," Rosa said. "I can call the clinic on the reservation and explain what happened. Maybe they can send someone to pick up Little Hawk." Little Hawk tried to give Rosa his family's information, but it was complicated. Many families on the reservation didn't have regular addresses like people in town did, and phone service was limited. Little Hawk knew some phone numbers, but he wasn't sure if anyone would be available to answer during the day. Rosa decided to make the long walk to Mrs. Chen's house. Anyway, it was the best option they had for getting help for Little Hawk. Maya wanted to come with her, but Rosa thought it would be better if Maya stayed with Little Hawk in case he needed anything. "Take care of our guest, Mija," Rosa told Maya before She left. "I'll be back as soon as I can." After Rosa left, Maya felt the weight of responsibility for taking care of Little Hawk by herself. She was only 8 years old, but Rosa had taught her to be capable and caring. Maya made sure Little Hawk was comfortable, brought him fresh water, and found ways to keep him entertained while they waited for Rosa to return. Maya showed Little Hawk her small collection of books, and even though he couldn't read English fluently, he enjoyed looking at the pictures and having Maya read to him. She chose books with lots of illustrations, stories about adventures, animals, and faraway places. Little Hawk, in return, told Maya stories from his own culture. He shared legends about brave warriors, wise animals, and the spirits that his people believed watched over the land. Maya was captivated by these stories, which were unlike anything she had ever heard before. One story that particularly impressed Maya was about a young girl who helped an injured eagle, and how that act of kindness led to the eagle's family protecting the girl's village from danger. "My grandfather says that when you help someone, you create a bond that can last forever," Little Hawk explained. Maya thought about this as she looked out the window at the vast prairie surrounding their trailer. She wondered if helping Little Hawk would create some kind of lasting bond, though she couldn't imagine how. As the day went on, Maya continued to care for Little Hawk with the same attention Rosa would have given. She prepared lunch using the last of their crackers and some canned fruit, making sure Little Hawk had enough to eat even if it meant she would go hungry later. She also helped Little Hawk when he needed to get up to use the bathroom, supporting his weight and helping him move carefully so he wouldn't hurt his leg further. Maya was small, but she was strong and determined to help however she could. In the afternoon, Little Hawk began to worry about his family. "They will be looking for me," he said. "My horse? She probably went home. My grandfather will know something happened." Maya tried to comfort him. "Rosa will find a way to contact your family," she assured him. "And until then, you're safe here with us." But Maya could see that Little Hawk was homesick and worried. She tried to distract him by teaching him some of the games she played when she was bored. They played simple word games, and Maya taught him some English phrases while he taught her a few words in his native language. Late in the afternoon, Rosa finally returned from her long walk to Mrs. Chen's house. She was tired and her arthritis was bothering her, but she had good news. She had been able to contact the medical clinic on the reservation, and they were going to send someone to pick up Little Hawk the next morning. "The nurse I talked to knows your family," Rosa told Little Hawk. "She said your grandfather has been very worried and has people out looking for you. She's going to get word to him that you're safe." Little Hawk looked relieved, but Maya could also see that he seemed a little sad. She realized that he had grown comfortable with them and might be sad about leaving. Maya felt the same way. She had enjoyed having Little Hawk as their guest and learning about his life and culture. That evening, Rosa prepared what she called a farewell feast for Little Hawk, even though their food supplies were extremely limited. She used the last of their rice, added some vegetables that neighbors had given them, and made it special by serving it on their best plates, a set of dishes that had belonged to Maya's mother. During dinner, Little Hawk thanked Maya and Rosa repeatedly for their kindness. "I will never forget what you have done for me," he said seriously. "My grandfather always says that true kindness is rare and precious. You have given me something very precious." Maya felt embarrassed by his praise, but also proud. She had never thought of their help as anything special. It just seemed like the right thing to do. But seeing how grateful Little Hawk was made her realize that their actions had made a real difference in his life. After dinner, Maya gave Little Hawk one of her most treasured possessions, a small wooden horse that her father had carved for her before he died. It wasn't worth much money, but it was special to Maya because it reminded her of her father's love. Maya was dreaming about running across the prairie on a beautiful painted horse when a sound unlike anything she had ever heard began to pull her from sleep. At first, she thought the sound was part of her dream, but as she became more awake, she realized the thundering noise was real and it was getting louder. The sound was rhythmic and powerful, like thunder that kept rolling and rolling without stopping. Mixed with it were other sounds, voices calling out, the creak of leather, and something that sounded almost like music. Maya's eyes opened wide as she tried to figure out what could be making such an incredible noise so early in the morning. She sat up on her makeshift bed on the floor and looked around the trailer. Little Hawk was still sleeping peacefully in her bed, and she could hear Rosa moving around in the kitchen, probably wondering about the noise too. But the sound was getting closer and louder with each passing moment. Maya got to her feet and tiptoed to the small window at the front of their trailer. What she saw outside made her gasp so loudly that she woke up Little Hawk. The entire area around their trailer was filled with horses and riders. Not just a few horses, but dozens of them, all moving together in a group that seemed to flow like a river across the landscape. The riders were dressed in ways Maya had never seen before, with feathered headdresses, colorful clothing, and painted faces that made them look both beautiful and powerful. "Little Hawk," Maya whispered urgently, her voice filled with amazement and fear. "You need to see this." Little Hawk struggled to sit up in the bed, wincing as his injured leg moved. Maya helped him get to a position where he could see out the window, and when he did, his face lit up with a mixture of joy, relief, and something that looked like pride. "My grandfather," Little Hawk said quietly, his voice filled with emotion. "He found me." Maya looked back out the window and tried to count the horses and riders, but there were so many of them that they seemed to blur together in a sea of movement and color. She had never seen anything so magnificent and intimidating at the same time. Rosa appeared in the doorway of Maya's room, her eyes wide with amazement and concern. She had been looking out the kitchen window and had seen the incredible sight of so many riders approaching their humble trailer. "Mija," Rosa said to Maya, her voice calm but serious, "we need to be very respectful. These are Little Hawk's people, and this is clearly very important." As the group of riders came closer to their trailer, Maya could see more details. The horses were beautiful, painted in patterns and colors that seemed to tell stories. Some of the riders carried long poles with feathers and other decorations attached. The clothing they wore was rich with beadwork, fringe, and symbols that Maya didn't understand but found fascinating. At the front of the group rode a man who was clearly their leader. He was older than the others, with long gray hair and a magnificent headdress made of feathers that seemed to catch and reflect the early morning sunlight. His face was painted with designs that made him look both fierce and wise, and he rode his horse with the confidence of someone who had been doing it his entire life. Maya realized that this must be Little Hawk's grandfather, the tribal leader, that Little Hawk had spoken about with such love and respect. Even from a distance, Maya could see why Little Hawk admired him so much. The man had a presence that commanded attention and respect. Behind the leader rode the other warriors, and Maya realized that's what they were. These were Native American warriors in traditional dress, riding as their ancestors had ridden generations ago. Some carried bows, others held decorated lances, and all of them looked serious and determined. The sound that had woken Maya was the thundering of dozens of horses' hooves on the hard prairie ground, mixed with the voices of the riders calling to each other in their native language. It was a sound that spoke of power, tradition, and purpose. As the group reached their trailer, the riders began to form a large circle around the small building. Maya watched in amazement as the horses moved in perfect formation, each rider knowing exactly where to go without any apparent signal from their leader. It was like watching a carefully choreographed dance performed by both horses and humans. When all the riders were in position, the prairie became suddenly quiet. The only sounds were the gentle stamping of horses' hooves, the creak of leather saddles, and the soft jingling of the decorative elements on the riders' clothing and equipment. Maya's heart was beating so fast, she thought everyone would be able to hear it. She had never been in a situation like this before, and she wasn't sure what was expected of her. Rosa put a gentle hand on Maya's shoulder, giving her courage and reminding her that they were not in any danger. These people had come for Little Hawk. The leader of the group, Little Hawk's grandfather, dismounted from his horse with graceful dignity despite his age. As his feet touched the ground, several of the other warriors also dismounted and took positions behind him. Maya could see that every movement was deliberate and meaningful, part of traditions that had been followed for countless generations. Little Hawk struggled to get out of bed, and Maya quickly moved to help him. Even though his leg was injured, he wanted to stand and greet his grandfather properly. Maya supported him as he limped toward the front window, and when his grandfather saw him through the glass, the older man's stern expression softened with relief and love. Rosa straightened her old jacket and ran her hands through her graying hair, trying to make herself look presentable. Maya wished she had time to change out of the clothes she had slept in, but there was no time for that now. The knock at their door when it came was firm and authoritative but not threatening. Rosa took a deep breath, looked at Maya and Little Hawk, and then walked to the door. Maya could see that Rosa's hands were trembling slightly as she reached for the door handle, but her voice was steady when she called out, "Just a moment, please." Rosa opened the door and found herself face to face with Little Hawk's grandfather. Up close, Maya could see that he was even more impressive than he had appeared from a distance. He was tall and strong despite his age, with intelligent eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. His presence filled the entire doorway. Behind him stood several other warriors, all dressed in traditional regalia that was both beautiful and intimidating. Maya had never seen people who looked so powerful and dignified at the same time. Little Hawk's grandfather spoke first, his voice deep and carrying the weight of authority. "I am Chief Standing Bear," he said in English that was accented but clear and formal. "I have come for my grandson." Rosa nodded respectfully. "Please come in," she said, stepping aside to make room for the chief to enter their small trailer. Chief Standing Bear entered the trailer, and Maya was amazed at how his presence seemed to fill the entire space. Even though he was inside their humble home, he maintained his dignity and bearing. Several of his warriors followed him inside, while the others remained with the horses. When Chief Standing Bear saw Little Hawk, his stern expression completely melted away. Maya watched as the powerful tribal leader became simply a grandfather who was relieved to see his injured grandson alive and safe. The love between them was obvious and touching. Chief Standing Bear spoke to Little Hawk in their native language, and Little Hawk responded, explaining what had happened to him. Maya couldn't understand the words, but she could tell that Little Hawk was telling his grandfather about how she and Rosa had found him and cared for him. As Little Hawk spoke, Chief Standing Bear's eyes moved to Maya and Rosa. Maya felt nervous under his intense gaze, but she also sensed that he was evaluating them in a positive way. When Little Hawk finished his explanation, Chief Standing Bear looked at Maya and Rosa with an expression that seemed to be measuring their character. "My grandson tells me that you found him injured and brought him to your home," Chief Standing Bear said to Rosa. "He says you gave him food, shelter, and care even though you were strangers." Rosa nodded. "Any decent person would have done the same," she said simply. The boy was hurt and needed help. Chief Standing Bear looked around their modest trailer, taking in the simple furniture, the signs of their limited resources, and the evidence of the care they had given to Little Hawk. Maya could see him noticing the empty soup cans in the trash, the blankets they had used to make Little Hawk comfortable, and the makeshift bed on the floor where Maya had slept. "You gave him your own food," Chief Standing Bear observed. "Your own bed. You gave what you had, even though you have little." Maya found her voice even though she was nervous. "Rosa taught me that when someone needs help, you help them however you can," she said quietly. Chief Standing Bear looked at Maya with intense interest. Maya could see that he was studying her carefully, as if trying to understand something important about her character. The moment stretched on, and Maya felt like she was being examined in a way that was both serious and important. Finally, Chief Standing Bear spoke again. "In our tradition," he said slowly, "when someone saves a member of our tribe, especially a member of the chief's family, it creates a sacred bond. This bond cannot be broken and must be honored." Maya didn't fully understand what he meant, but she could tell that. Maya watched through the window as the 40 warriors arranged themselves in precise formation outside their trailer. Each warrior carried bundles wrapped in beautiful blankets and animal skins, and Maya began to realize that these weren't just packages, they were gifts, and there were many of them. Chief Standing Bear gestured for Maya and Rosa to come outside. "Please," he said with great dignity. "You must come and receive the honor that our people wish to give you." Rosa helped, Little Hawk to his feet, and Maya supported him on the other side as they all walked slowly toward the door. Maya's heart was beating fast with excitement and nervousness. She had never been the center of attention for so many people before, and these weren't just any people. These were warriors from Little Hawk's tribe, dressed in their traditional regalia and looking more magnificent than anyone she had ever seen. As they stepped outside into the morning sunlight, Maya was overwhelmed by the sight before her. The 40 warriors stood in perfect rows, their colorful clothing and painted faces creating a scene that looked like something from a history book or a movie. But this was real, and it was happening right outside her own home. Chief Standing Bear raised his hand and all the warriors became completely silent. The only sounds were the gentle wind blowing across the prairie and the soft sounds of the horses shifting their weight and breathing. "My people," Chief Standing Bear called out in English, clearly wanting Maya and Rosa to understand what he was saying. "We gather today to honor 2 women whose kindness saved the life of my grandson and brought great honor to our entire tribe." Maya felt overwhelmed by the formality and importance of what was happening. She had never imagined that helping Little Hawk would lead to anything like this. Chief Standing Bear continued his speech, his voice carrying across the prairie with authority and emotion. "These women found Little Hawk injured and alone. They could have passed by as many people would. Instead, they brought him to their home, gave him their food, their bed, their care, and their love. They asked for nothing in return." Little Hawk stood proudly between Maya and Rosa, despite the pain in his injured leg. Maya could see that he was happy and proud to be part of this ceremony. "In our tradition," Chief Standing Bear went on, "when someone saves a member of our tribe, we do not simply say thank you and walk away. We create a bond that lasts forever. Today, we offer these women the greatest honor our people can give. We invite them to become part of our family." Maya gasped quietly. She wasn't sure she had understood correctly. Were they being invited to join Little Hawk's tribe? Chief Standing Bear gestured to the first group of warriors, who stepped forward carrying their bundles. "First, we bring gifts to replace what you gave to help Little Hawk, and to ensure that you will never go without the necessities of life again." The warriors began opening their bundles, and Maya couldn't believe what she was seeing. There were bags and bags of food, more food than she and Rosa usually saw in several months. There were cans of soup, bags of rice and beans, flour, sugar, coffee, and fresh fruits and vegetables that must have come from trading with farmers in the area. "This food will last you through the winter and beyond," Chief Standing Bear explained. "You will not go hungry because you chose to feed my grandson instead of yourselves." Maya looked at Rosa, who had tears in her eyes. Maya knew that Rosa was thinking about all the nights they had gone to bed hungry, and all the times they had had to choose between buying food and paying for other necessities. The next group of warriors stepped forward with different bundles. When they opened these, Maya saw beautiful blankets, warm clothing, and household items that would make their life in the trailer much more comfortable. "You gave Little Hawk your warmth and comfort," Chief Standing Bear said. "Now you will have warmth and comfort for yourselves." One of the blankets was the most beautiful thing Maya had ever seen. It was woven with patterns and colors that seemed to tell a story, and it was incredibly soft to the touch. Rosa ran her fingers over the intricate design with wonder and appreciation. But the gifts weren't finished. The third group of warriors brought tools and materials for repairing their trailer. Maya saw wood, nails, roofing materials, and paint. Everything they would need to fix the holes in their roof and make their home weathertight and comfortable. "Your home gave shelter to my grandson," Chief Standing Bear explained. "Now your home will be strong and safe for many years to come." Maya was amazed. These gifts would solve almost all of the practical problems that she and Rosa had been struggling with, but Chief Standing Bear wasn't finished yet. "The greatest gift," he said, "is not something you can hold in your hands. It is membership in our family." Chief Standing Bear gestured to Little Hawk, who limped forward despite his injury. Little Hawk was carrying a small bundle wrapped in soft deerskin. When he opened it, Maya saw the most beautiful set of traditional Native American clothing she had ever seen. It was sized for a child her age, with intricate beadwork, soft fringe, and colors that seemed to glow in the sunlight. "This belonged to my great-granddaughter," Chief Standing Bear told Maya. "She would be about your age now if she had lived. We want you to have it, and we want you to be part of our family." Maya looked at the beautiful clothing with wonder. She had never owned anything so special or meaningful. But more than that, she was beginning to understand that this wasn't just about receiving gifts. She was being welcomed into Little Hawk's family and community. Rosa was presented with her own traditional clothing, sized for an adult woman. Like Maya's outfit, it was beautifully made with careful attention to every detail. Maya could see that Rosa was deeply moved by the gesture. "But there is more," Chief Standing Bear announced. He gestured to several warriors who were holding what looked like official papers and documents. "Maya," Chief Standing Bear said, looking directly at her, "you are now enrolled as an honorary member of our tribe. This means you have access to our tribal college, where you can get an education that will prepare you for any future you choose. All of your schooling, including college, will be paid for by our tribe." Maya felt like she might faint. She had always loved school and learning, but she had worried about what would happen when she got older, and Rosa couldn't afford to send her to college. Now that worry was gone forever. "Rosa," Chief Standing Bear continued, "you are also an honorary member of our tribe. You will receive tribal health care benefits, and you will always have a place in our community if you choose to join us." Rosa began to cry quietly. Maya knew that Rosa had been worried about her health problems and about what would happen to Maya if something happened to her. These benefits would give them both security they had never had before. But Chief Standing Bear still wasn't finished. He gestured to one of the warriors, who led forward the most beautiful horse Maya had ever seen. It was painted with traditional designs, and its mane was braided with colorful ribbons and beads. "This horse is yours, Maya," Chief Standing Bear said. "In our tradition, a person is not complete without a connection to the horse nation. This mare is gentle and well-trained. She will be your companion and will help you travel between your home here and our reservation whenever you wish to visit your new family." Maya couldn't speak. She had dreamed of having a horse of her own, but she had never imagined it could actually happen. The mare was beautiful and seemed to sense that Maya was special to her now. She lowered her head toward Maya, and Maya gently touched her soft nose. "What is her name?" Maya managed to ask. "She doesn't have a name yet," Chief Standing Bear replied. "It is your honor to name her." Maya thought for a moment, looking at the beautiful patterns painted on the horse's coat. "Morning Star," she said softly. "I want to call her Morning Star." Little Hawk smiled widely. "That's a perfect name," he said. "Morning Star was a great warrior woman in our history." As if the gifts weren't amazing enough, Chief Standing Bear had one more surprise. He reached into his own pouch and pulled out a beautiful necklace made of silver, turquoise, and intricate beadwork. "This necklace belonged to my grandmother," he told Maya as he placed it around her neck. "She was a healer and a wise woman. I give this to you because I can see that you have the same kind heart and healing spirit that she had." Maya touched the necklace carefully. It felt warm against her skin, and she could sense the history and importance of what she was wearing. "Now," Chief Standing Bear announced to all the warriors, "we have a ceremony to complete the adoption of our new family members." The warriors formed a large circle around Maya, Rosa, and Little Hawk. Some of them began to sing in their native language, while others played traditional drums and flutes. The music was unlike anything Maya had ever heard. It seemed to connect her to the earth beneath her feet and the sky above her head. Chief Standing Bear spoke words in his native language over Maya and Rosa, and even though Maya couldn't understand the words, she could feel their power and meaning. She sensed that she was being welcomed not just into Little Hawk's immediate family, but into a community with centuries of tradition and wisdom. When the ceremony was complete, the warriors began to pack up their gifts and prepare to return to the reservation. But before they left, Chief Standing Bear had one more thing to say.